Hello and welcome back to the Luzina Experience. I am doing this meaningful conversation with people who see ourselves more clearly. And today I am with my favorite, Dr. Laurie Emery, and we are exploring the journey of becoming. I guess I would say it's more called becoming, the space between awakening and embodiment. And I am so honored to introduce Dr. Laurie. Dr. Laura, please tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself.
Hi, well, thank you so much for having me. And I love being here with you because you're also one of my favorite people. And I think there's nothing more fun than being able to be in service on the planet with the people that we love. So, a little bit about me. Let's see. So I started my first career in special education with children who had lived through trauma. And I worked in the school system for about 8 years and became a behavior specialist. And my heart was really called at that time to be in the field of mental health. So I went back to school and got my doctorate in psychology. And I'll do the short version of the story because I know we have some really yummy stuff to talk about. But on my own journey, I was really looking for my own healing because I was struggling. And so all of the schooling and degrees and accolades did not heal what was happening inside. And I just kept looking for how do I heal? And I found myself very frustrated with traditional therapy. I saw people sitting in therapy for years, sitting in that one tool and not really creating real transformation. And so I actually formally left the mental health system in 2012 and became a transformational coach and expert. And I began coaching in arenas with experiential trainings where you're in your body doing work to release and retrain your nervous system. And after that, I found plant medicines. And as I watched what supported my body to heal and what helped me heal, I then created my own retreat weekends and personal development courses to support others to go on the same journey so that they could be free of what was getting in their way. So that's where I am today. And most importantly, Lizina, I am the mother of, I'll say 5 children because we have 3 biological children and we took in 2 children along the way. And we are still very much both of their parents. And they have just been the biggest teachers of my entire life. And I'm married to a beautiful man for this year's 20 years. And so I've learned a lot there as well in what it means to create a healthy, interconnected marriage and committed relationship. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you so much. I'm sitting here melting. I have worked on what I used to call putting people on a pedestal or having resentment for people when I didn't understand what they were mirroring or teaching me. So I feel like when connecting with you has been so just knowing you and watching you and being around you, I can feel everything that you said because I witnessed it.
Yeah.
I witnessed some of your journey and there's more that I didn't, but I truly felt like I witnessed your heart. And that was a way for me to keep doing the work too and aspire to become I saw myself in you and I was like, at first it was very intimidating. And then I was like, oh, I see why this is happening. Yes, universe, thank you. So I
Yeah.
truly I appreciate your words because I can feel them.
Because, one of the things you and I committed to talking about today was why people repeat the same patterns in relationship. And
Mhm.
I want to share this with you is, us being in a personal development course together and bringing our family, our children into that space. I always say this phrase that I actually don't know where it originally comes from. I should probably look it up. But when I heard it, I believe it was my mentor, Haiti Schleifer. And she said, we get wounded in relationship and we heal in relationship. And I just believe that everything in life is about relationship. And you have been also such a place of inspiration and permission for me because as you know, going through healing process with your children is so raw and so vulnerable. It touches a place in us that only another parent can understand. And watching you have the courage to do the work that you've done with your children and the love that you gave to me while I was going through it with my children made me feel stronger as that you were there as I was going through it and made me feel so supported. And it was such a healing place for me because of, my old beliefs and my old patterns where I have to be strong and I have to do it all myself. And I didn't really have a mom. And so having strong females around me support me like that is always so healing. And you've been one of those people for me.
I receive. Now it could be a little dramatic, not in a bad way, but thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I'm holding it together here.
Yeah, it's true. It's really true.
You just made my day. Thank you. Okay, I can get through this. You're absolutely right. I do agree, and I truly, truly believe that our core human needs, and this is quoting Alfred Adler in so many ways because I really believe that in that specific work is that we are supposed to heal in relationships. We are supposed to feel encouraged and belong. That's our core being. I say this all the time. I chose to believe that I wasn't lovable or I wasn't wanted, and I made decisions and took actions to reinforce that belief and sabotage the very connection that I really wanted with people. And to be able to look at the two of us and the journey that we've had and see that that is so true, I will speak on it forever. And that's what made me so excited. And I want to thank ASEAN for saying what I was thinking out loud and making sure that this connection was something that I pursued and I nurtured because I really feel like we can talk so much about this. It's when our conversation starts to begin with how we witness our lives, it's so much easier to witness it in someone. And so we get to explore what's beneath the surface and while we have parallels, it's going to be so much different. And so I'm excited to dive into this topic specifically is about why we repeat the same patterns in a relationship. Um, and have you had moments where something happened and suddenly you're like, wait a minute, this feels too familiar for me? What was that like?
You know, growing up, my father was undiagnosed bipolar, and my mom was very, very intellectually low functioning. And so, in that fairly traumatic situation, I made some very strong decisions at that time of what I was never going to do and how I was never going to end up like her and let a man treat me that way. I had all of these defining moments that people don't realize we create when we're little. And I created this armor around me. And when I was 25, was dating someone and ended up in an abusive relationship. And I literally thought to myself as he was stepping on my face, how did I get here? Like I never thought this was going to be me because I had created so much judgment toward my mother for putting up with it. And so, as we all do, we think we armor up and I'll do all the opposite things so I never end up, like that person. And life humbled me beautifully because it was the beginning of my personal journey of going inward because as you know, we don't just attract the same person. We are literally recreating the same emotional experience that our body remembers. And so like attracting certain type of people is a different thing than acknowledging that we're attracting something that like we're not a victim of it, right? It's not happening to us. We're literally recreating something that's unhealed and there's something in us that drives because it's familiar, which is what you said to me is have you right? And that's what we do because psychologically it's repetition compulsion. We think if this time I can get in it and if I love them enough and if I'm good enough and if I'm strong enough, and that never works because you've inherently picked a person who's going to recreate that pattern with you. And I very thing. In a lot of ways, we do it in every relationship if we're not conscious. It doesn't even have to be abusive. It can be one's being a people pleaser and one's being a controller, and that's what you grew up with. You know what I mean? So we recreate patterns in so many different ways because our nervous system isn't wired for happiness. It's wired for familiarity. And so what can feel like chemistry and destiny, that spark or that pull that you feel in your body is often just your body reorganizing a feeling that it's known before, right? Because our system goes, oh, I know this. I've been here and it picks familiarity.
Yeah. And I relate to that too because I feel like even though I started my journey 7 years ago, it wasn't until maybe 2 years or so that I really truly saw how I was recreating my father wounds. I didn't even know that I had a father wound. I didn't know that I was having patterns. And I'm like, wait, what is this? Why? What? even though there's something that happened here, what was my part in it? And that rabbit hole was for me, it was like, okay, well, why am I an avoidant? Because love wasn't safe. It's up to me to reframe that and do that differently. But then I also didn't know that there was this inner child dynamic that was playing. And it wasn't only playing in my personal life, it was showing up at work. It was showing up in relationships. It ended it terribly. And it showed me that what I picked up from my mom was I was subservient and I was setting for crumbs. And my father had a child with someone else. And then here I am in a relationship. I'm not feeling chosen. I appreciate that you share everything that you did because I could see myself in all of those. They're
When we're children, we learn what love feels like, not what it feel like, not what you'd choose if you were conscious and healed, but what it actually felt like in your environment. And you told like the beautiful picture of your patterns, right? We all have them. If we're not conscious, we repeat them whether we like it or not. And that emotional, it's like a fingerprint, right? It becomes plate for relationship, right? And you said it. We look at our parents and we go, oh, that's what connection and marriage and intimacy looks like. And our dad for us females is our opposite sex relationship, and our mothers are our example of how to be women in the world. And we literally take these unconscious notes, this, like, I call it a roadmap, right? We write the roadmap and then we go out into the world with our child's roadmap, and it looks bad on an adult because it doesn't work, right? And a lot of drama and challenges and problems in relationship. Like, you're calling it avoidant, but I want to put that in more layman's terms for whoever's listening. But if you have a parent who's emotionally distant, who withdraws, or if love wasn't safe, your nervous system feels that distance, or if you have someone in your family where you have to work for affection, or somebody runs hot and cold, or I can give many examples, but your nervous system recognizes that as love. And then what gets interesting is that's where a lot of people get confused, that calm, distant person, the one who's actually available and kind, they can feel boring, or, right. I remember saying to my first analyst, like, nice guys are boring. And I knew there was something wrong with what I was saying, but it was what was true for me. Because
yeah.
familiar. We had so many highs and lows and ups and downs that my nervous system was like, if it doesn't light up, that part of my nervous system that learned to associate love with intensity or chaos or having to earn it, then we go out and that feels like aliveness when it's anxiousness and fear at the same time.
Yeah.
It feels like home, unfortunately.
And that's exactly it. It's the labels help me understand them. But what does that look like when I'm actually in a relationship with someone, and how is that dynamic showing up? And we talked earlier, that's where that mirroring, like, that's where the healing can happen. That's where the growth can happen.
Imagine as a little child, we're just sensing machines, right? We're completely open. And when our nervous system experiences these really big emotions, it's like we go and we cut them off, right? So we don't finish the wave of emotion, and we hold. And so the body imprints. And until we learn to come back home to our body and feel all the way through every emotion without leaving, and we leave in so many sophisticated ways. And when we leave, it's like our sensors are turned off. Because I'll go back to my story. I remember the first day. I say this to clients, on the first day what you know on the last day. And when I say know, what I mean is we have this inner knowing and we pick things up. But when we've lived through that trauma, it's like our sensors are turned off and we don't listen to it, and we bring it up into our head. And that's not where relationship happens. And then let the games begin, right? We play out the same pattern. Even if it's I'm avoiding my feelings and I'm going to people please, that's a pattern also, right? Someone's chasing and someone's a caretaker. That's a pattern. And so every relationship has patterns. And if we can catch it and start to come home and learn to stay with what we feel every single time, we can retrain the body. But we're not raised with those tools.
And you make a very good point with the staying. I want to go back to the staying in a minute, but I also want to share with you. I did timeline therapy and I did what's called a life story class. And what that kind of got me to do was zoom out and look at my life like as a third party, like an observer. And I really appreciated that because when I think about this, there's this Dr. Bowlby. He's a psycho therapist in the UK, and I think a lot of the attachment style talks about this. From 0 to 3 is when our nervous system learns emotional safety and nervous system safety. And when you think of it as a human being, we're literally separated from source, right? So it's like there's this big abandonment that's happened and it's all part of the journey. But at the same time, and I think Dr. Gabor Mate talks about this, we deserve to have loving caregivers who love us unconditionally and show us and teach us how to process emotions. But when we've never had that, by age 7, those limiting beliefs is already there. And then by age 13, it kind of stuck. So knowing that whenever an emotion comes up, I tend to observe it, feel it, stay in it, and make sure that I'm accessing it from the space that it needs to, but also not like letting it stick and stay with me. What is it that I can learn from this and what was this even trying to teach me? And so when you say about the staying, I think that is such a big thing when it comes to relationship because what I find is that I can come to you and I'm just using you as an example because I know you're not going to do this, but I can come to you and I'm sharing like, I had a really bad day, this and this and this and this happened. And when you start to give me advice or pointing out something that I need to do or how I've handled it in the past, or it's like this, the spiritual bypassing or the emotional bypassing or the solution based. And now I start to feel analyzed. I don't feel really felt. I don't feel like you were there in the moment with me. And that is the part that I believe is staying. It's staying present with whatever the emotions that's happening, however that person's feeling, and being able to ask, like, how can I support you? Because when we start offering those solutions, it starts to become unsafe. And then I feel it in my nervous system first. And I really believe that that is the connection in relationship is when two people are talking or having a connection, those moments are what matters.
Well, what happens in that moment is if you're talking to me, I always say to people, imagine there's this white light of energy that goes back and forth between us, right? And in order for me to read what you're sharing with me, I breathe it into my body. I hear your tone. I hear your words. If I have a detour sign, like let's say you said that you were afraid of something. And this is actually true for me growing up. I actually shut off feeling fear. I taught myself not to feel fear because it was a protection for my nervous system, right? Because I lived in so much fear. While it was protecting me as a child, now I'm in my day-to-day life as an adult. And if you were to bring fear to me, I would maybe start telling you why you shouldn't feel that way and how to solve it because I have a detour sign inside of me where fear lives and I can't touch it in order to connect with you, not willing to stay and see it. So it kind of happens both ways, right? Where if every person could learn to stay and notice when they want to leave, that those protections aren't serving us anymore. But it's about breaking the pattern and breaking it in the relationship system, right? This is the first step. You have to see it before you can change it. But awareness alone doesn't change anything. You can know intellectually what your pattern is and still be completely run by it. Did you have this experience? My relationship, I knew I was in a very dysfunctional relationship. I was watching myself going, what the heck are you doing? And I was still doing it.
Yep.
I knew and I couldn't. It was like
That Yeah, and that showed up for me, especially with my kids. There was a time my ex-husband, and this was one of the most beautiful things that he'd ever said to me. He's like, Lizina, you might be right in what you're saying, but it's how you're saying it is when you're going about it's what makes you wrong. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And then I noticed that I would get so angry with my kids, like 0 to hero, so fast. It was just like hop, skip, and jump. I was blinded to it. I had no idea how bad it was. But when I saw the devastation that it caused, that's when it was like I gotta do something differently. You were sharing about that connection and noticing when you want to run away, when you're not wanting to stay. what I'm experiencing is a lot of people want to feel seen, but not a lot of people are wanting to meet. I'm seeing you, but now the protection comes up. I could almost feel when the protection comes up and say, well, I don't feel safe feeling seen when how would you how would you be able to get someone to recognize a difference between meeting and seeing?
I would only enter into that conversation if someone asked me and they were interested. When I'm with others, I stay in my body and I experience what's happening in the relationship. And I have an opportunity in that moment to be a victim to what's happening, which means I can feel like it's happening to me. And in the moment that I want to teach or show or all of that, that tells me that I'm resisting what it feels like to be with someone who cannot meet me emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
What I do is I sit in that experience of, oh, okay, this person is not able to meet me. And I surrender to it because I'm not interested in my old pattern would have been to try to change it, to try to teach it, to try to talk about it. I don't do that anymore. That's a protection of mine. I don't do that anymore. I just stay really raw with what I experience. And that experience gives me information on whether or not I'm in a relationship where I have the space to be intimate with somebody. Now, I also want to say from a place of complete ownership, source, and responsibility, if from a place of, I believe the phrase is, be what you want to create in the world, right? So if vulnerability and intimacy is missing in the space, I put it in the space. I don't try to teach it. I try to put it in the space. And I find that when I'm being what I want to create, then it's what you and I spoke about in our relationship. It gives the other person permission to join me, and either they do
Yes.
or they don't. And that's information as well. So I focus really on who I want to be. And then I surrender to what is in each relationship. And I don't try to make it anything that it's not. But from a place of ownership, one of my other defenses growing up was becoming intellectual, right? I have 4 degrees from college because I thought I needed to know more. And I didn't need to know more. Because after I got out of college, I needed to unlearn everything I learned so that I could actually connect. And I realized that when I'm in my head, when my heart is not open, I'm not creating vulnerability around me. So I look both places.
Thank you for sharing that. I agree with so much of that. I like the term relational responsibility because I like that's coming from higher self and being able to model, not teach. The minute I start to think about somebody else, that's my indicator that I'm not experiencing this from me. Go back into my feelings and what's in my circle of control. I also love that you shared that you create that safety. You add vulnerability. I believe that's such a powerful thing. What do you believe in your experience is beneath the repeating of the pattern? If we haven't already covered that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on it. I think our brain is wired for survival. And in those survival patterns, we look to stay safe, be in control, avoid pain, hold on to an image of ourselves and be right. And all of that is protection. And we're animals by nature. And as we go off into the world, right? Once we're downloading from the moment we're born, the brain is engaged. And because it's wired for that, unless we're taught or we're blessed enough to live in a home that's very emotionally intelligent, we all develop protections, and they can be beautiful protections. They can look really pretty, right? People who are pleasers and they show up very kind, or avoiders where they never want to make waves. Those are protections, right? Any keeps us from our authenticity and our true self. And I think the journey is about learning to come back home and be our most authentic self. I call it like imagine, because I believe everything is energy, and that energy runs through this meat suit, as they call this in the Course in Miracles. And the body is like a thermometer, and it gives me information. And whenever I'm not able to feel through a feeling, it's like I'm blocked. So my results show me where I'm blocked, because when I'm creating results that I don't want to create, that I'll say that wasn't my intention, then I know there's something between me and my ultimate ability to create what I want to create in the world. So I think to answer you simply, underneath those protections, there's, fear of being hurt, fear of being vulnerable, fear of whatever we make up about what it means to be safe. And the protections feel safer. They're our armor.
I agree so much because I've had to look at my own protections, and it's crazy how the protections are so subtle and they're sneaky and they just come up in an instant. When I think about the course that we've gone to, and at first I had some resistances because I love my mom and I love my dad, but I realized in exploring that it's not about the blaming of mom and dad per se. There's a deep emotional impact that went unacknowledged in childhood, that was so blocked by that anger, that frustration, and the resentment. So I started to go deeper into understand what was underneath that. I started thinking about emotional needs. What are the emotional needs from me? I started to pay attention to the actual feelings, the heat that comes in our meat suit or wherever that feeling is coming from. What is it that we need at those times in order for us to feel safe? I tend to go directly underneath the pattern and go to the core need. However, that can sometimes sabotage me because I'm seeing the wound and the person in front of me isn't really looking at the wounds themselves. And in that process, I'm abandoning myself and I'm not even recognizing that that's also a pattern that I'm repeating.
Yeah. You brought up a few different things that I want to address. One is I think people make a mistake at thinking if I go to heal my stuff and I acknowledge how I experienced things growing up, that it means I'm making my parents wrong, attacking them, I'm betraying them, all of that. And I think there's two big points with that, with what you brought up with having to do with our parents, which is first of all, trauma. And I don't mean big T trauma. I mean little t trauma, right? Anything that's so heightened in emotion is not the event itself. It's what happened after. Like there are videos of a bear being shot in the woods with a tranquilizer. And when he starts to come to, he needs to shake in order to be okay. That shaking is part of his body releasing the trauma that just happened when he got shot, and he needs to do that. Or another example is when a butterfly is coming out of the cocoon, if you pull it out and don't let it struggle, it can't fly. You have to let it struggle. But what happens after a traumatic event oftentimes is those feelings get shoved in. And so without being able to feel all the way through and complete that, along with the brain is a meaning making machine. So it's always making meaning out of something. Like the only facts are my mom didn't give me ice cream one day, right? She was irritated and didn't want to give me $1. What I made that mean was I can't ask her for anything. She resents giving me money or things. I'm an obligation. Now she didn't say that. I interpreted that, right? And that's what you called radical responsibility, right? Is if I can look back and go, the only facts are, now look, my dad's rages were real. I was really scared every day. But what I made it mean was my stuff. That's my responsibility, right? Because I can sit with my dad today. He's one of my best friends today. We've done a lot of healing work together. He didn't want to be out of control either. And as we know as moms, we don't want to make those mistakes with our children. It isn't actually about them, although it affects them. And it definitely affects them. But it didn't mean that I'm not good enough, I'm not worth it, I'm not special, I'm an obligation. It didn't mean all that stuff. So we have to unwire that ourselves. That's our job.
That is so true. Even when it comes to forgiveness, I can forgive someone, but if they haven't forgiven themselves, they can't receive it. So even so with myself, I need to forgive me. It is their work to do. It is my work to do. Sometimes a little T is a parent who was so anxious that they did everything for their child. And what that child learned is that I'm not good enough to do this on my own. I'm always going to fail. Or, not believing in themselves that they can do it. I sometimes run into this myself where, well, I didn't have that much trauma, or, you had more trauma than me. Well, trauma is trauma. It's a response. It's not whether it's big or little. All feelings are the same. It's what we attached to those feelings when they were not acknowledged.
I think the word trauma has so much attached to it for people. And I think the way that I look at it is I say to people, all of us went through our childhood interpreting what was happening. And we all come through our childhood, and the two core wounds are abandonment and not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Human beings. There's no human being that got out of their childhood without interpreting one way or another. And the key that I talk about, because I work with a lot of high achievers. So I work with people who are very, very high functioning. They've created a lot of results in their life, which is easy to hide behind, right? And even being a hyperachiever is a protection. But back to my original point. But to be able to go, wow, as I went through my childhood, how did I experience what was happening? How did I interpret it? What did I make it mean about me, about the world, about my parents? That's where the healing happens. And so I try to keep the word trauma out of it because people tend to repel against it unless they've had big T trauma like abuse, neglect, or right. But having people be able to look back and go, let's just look at how you experienced it and how'd you wire it?
Yeah.
How did you connect those dots? And is it serving you today? Is it effective in your life today to hold on to those beliefs? And if they're limiting you, let's look at how you heal them. And if they're serving you, you can keep them, right? But sometimes when someone's a pleaser or an avoider, they think it's serving them because those saboteurs, they feel like who we are. I
Yes.
didn't know that all of my hyperachieving that was fueled by my not good enough anxiety and fear. I didn't know that that was an unhealthy pattern until later. Till, of course, the world, the universe taps you on the shoulder. Like, yeah, I ended up in the hospital. I had an eating disorder. I had all kinds of signs and symptoms that I wasn't looking at. But meanwhile,
Yeah.
on paper, I looked really good. Like I got
Right.
practice but I was struggling inside. And I think that's the quiet shame that I think is happening to a lot of people in the world is they've got this beautiful life. And yet inside they feel empty, or inside they still feel when they hit their head on the pillow, like something's missing, not enough. And I think those are important places to look for people.
Another thing that people often wonder is what actually begins shifting the pattern once we become aware of it. I feel like we end up staying in the pattern because it's like, oh my gosh, if I look at this, I need to also look at how I behaved and what my part, and that's something that I would avoid in the past. I would avoid looking at that. It was easier to blame someone else than to go inward and say, wow, this is just really my shame that's affecting so many other people. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think shame is what fuels addiction in general, right? Whether it's addiction to going outside of yourself and it manifests in many different ways. And I think that shame is this judgment. It comes from our biggest saboteur is our judge, right? So whenever I'm judging, I always look underneath it and go, what is it I didn't want to feel because I went into judgment? But realizing that that's what the brain is doing is that it's like internal family systems deals with different parts, right? And so when I can work with myself and go, wow, let me touch that part that wants to blame my other part, right? It's like I have a part that wants to judge and blame and make myself wrong. And what does that part even think its job is, right? Because all of our parts think they're helping. Every
Yeah.
part of it, right? It thinks it's protecting in some form or fashion. And so learning to own even the part that shames you and embrace it to go, wow, why did I do that? Right? Shaming comes from an older version of ourselves, not the version of ourselves that did the thing that we're shaming ourselves for.
Yeah, the judgment one shows up later on.
Humans are the only animal that once we learn something, we look back and shame ourselves for not knowing it sooner. We're the
Yeah.
only animal that does that. And I liken it to like, imagine when we're toddlers and we're learning to crawl and get up and walk. Imagine if we would have shamed ourselves every time we fell, right? But we didn't do that. So I think that it's learning to embrace every part, and that judge part that looks back is actually covering up a more vulnerable part. And when we can love the part that thinks it's protecting us and then go, what's underneath that? And can we
Yeah.
the sadness, the powerlessness, the vulnerability, right? And we those are muscles we have to learn inside our body.
Yeah.
We have
And
to
it's
create.
It's certainly not an easy task either to go within. It comes with a lot of, I mean, facing the shame alone, it comes with so much. I truly believe that when it comes to moving out of those cycles for myself, I needed to go and face them. But I just didn't know that I didn't know. I I had I had to have experiences that taught me those lessons. For me, personally, I needed to go through it, understand it, and then experience it and really feel it so that I can start to see the shifts. This is how I would have behaved yesterday. But now I have this in the life moment awareness. I'm choosing not to respond that way, but also reparenting that part of me that believed those things and felt that shame. I couldn't see that there was a way to come out of the cycle. I couldn't see that this was a pattern. So I feel like this is kind of a wrapping up kind of question for the people who are listening. What is it that they can, some practical tools or practical ways or questions that they can bring out to themselves so that they can move through those cycles? But also the thing that most people misunderstand about that particular part of the journey.
I think the biggest misunderstanding is people think if I am aware, if I understand and I can interpret my life, then I'm healed.
Mm,
And that is not because you can have all the knowledge and all the awareness and keep getting hijacked and triggered into your patterns. So I think that's the biggest thing. And I think the work is really simple. I think there are that point to it, like inner child work is one of them. And I want to add, there's one more, I think, misinterpretation out there is that I think each camp thinks that their tool is the tool. And there is no the tool, right? Because we need to be able to use those tools. And again, they're all pointing to the same thing: somatic work, psychodrama, inner child work, embodied leadership. It's all pointing to the same thing. In here, can we stay in the body? Feel when there's a physical sensation, feel the feeling that goes with it. As we're speaking, there's a physical sensation that goes with what we're saying. And that's how to get to know yourself, is to track in the body. And the way to do that is to breathe in. So it's see and then breathe and stay inside your body and notice when you're triggered. Just be with it, because when you're triggered, that is not the time to make any choices or decisions. You are not free to make a decision that's going to work for you. You are going to be hijacked and into your protections. So you stay and you breathe in and you identify as small of a physical sensation as you can find or a feeling. Notice if you want to stay in your head and breathe back down into the body. Stay as long as you can, even if you start 5 minutes a day, and then don't make a choice. The last one is choose. Do not make a choice because your lid flips in your brain when you're triggered. So the third part of your rational brain is not available when you're triggered. So as you breathe and calm down your nervous system and stay and you complete the whole wave of the feeling, only can you make a clean choice based on what you're committed to creating.
beautiful. I love the way you broke it down. As you're saying it, I'm thinking back about all of the moments when I have done those very thing and how powerful it's felt. Somebody told me last night, you just love crying. I'm like, because I know how sacred it is now. I understand how powerful it is. It's honoring. I get to see myself in some beautiful places and meet those versions of me and just, I don't, oh God, and beautiful decisions afterwards. Like the light comes on and it's like, oh, that's why I needed to feel this thing. I see it now. Oh, I may need release. One of the things that you said about the modality, I think everybody has a modality. I think that's part of the journey. Whatever heals you is what you're going to help healing other people. It all truly goes back to these core things that you mentioned. And it's been beautifully said, because the pattern is not a punishment. The pattern is a signal. It's a messenger. On the other side of it is beautiful relationships, not just with other people, but so much. Oh, I love this girl. Yo, I didn't know that I didn't know.
And we've broken the tree branch, right? Because I had abuse in my family. And although my nervous system started to recreate that with my first child, we've done so much healing together. We are be as a family where now my children are so emotionally intelligent and they give me feedback and they tell me and right? So I know that they'll go on and they'll be different in their families. They'll have their own patterns,
Yeah.
uh, but I think I mean, and like you said with dating, like you go sit with other humans, and our ability to be vulnerable gives them permission to be vulnerable, and that's how
Yes.
we heal the planet.
Exactly. Little by little. It's simply just, life inviting us to see something clearly enough that the repetition is not really necessary. The patterns isn't necessary. I would like you've given me so many beautiful gems here today. I love talking to you. I love hearing you. It's one of my favorite things because it's so insightful. And I even want to share, I think there was a day we were sitting in a pod and you said something about when a boy doesn't heal his father wounds or something like that, he stays a boy. I can't recall the exact words. And I was like, that is so profound. It's, because it's not just boys, it's all of us, but it was a magical gold touch. So if you have one nugget that, one reflection for anyone that's listening right now, what might the pattern be asking them to see?
That there's something calling to be healed, and if they could just be with themselves with compassion.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I
Absolutely.
appreciate this conversation. And if this resonates with anyone, please send it to someone that you can think of, share it, join the conversation. And Dr. Laurie and I have a few more of these. So get ready to just enjoy us talking and hear me yap and be swooning as well. My silliness. We will see you on the next, in the
You got it.